Bum bum. Thinking out loud.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. We are Lorgia and Nicole, and we're very excited to have you back this week.
Do you know what happened to me last week? I need your opinion because I don't know if I'm going insane or if this really happened.
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if you were insane.
I was in a restaurant and there was a chair in the corner of the restaurant, and I kept having this strange feeling because every time I turned around, I kept feeling as if the chair was staring and talking to me. So when I was about to leave, I heard something coming from the end of the corner. So as the curious person I am, I went over to the corner and there was that chair that I kept having this strange feeling about. So I don't know why, but I ended up sitting in that chair. And after that, I don't remember anything else. I just woke up in my bed the next day.
I told you to stop reading those fantasy books.
Actually, I was kidding. Would you imagine that? Would you imagine me being in that scenario? This is actually a book that I found very interesting. And today we have the great honor to have the author with us.
Oh, let's welcome him.
Hi guys, great honour, thank you very much, and lovely introduction.
Hi. Could you please introduce yourself and the book, please?
Yeah, so I'm Mr. Nejat. I am an English teacher and top teacher at Castor Fells BSB and a self-published author.
Interesting. So we have some questions we would like you to ask. About La Cadira. To start with, we would like to know, why did you choose a chair as an object that pulls the character to another world?
Okay, so I think I need to take you back in time a little bit to answer this. So La Cadira is based on an idea I had when I was 9 years old. So it comes from a fairy tale collection, spurred on from ideas from my childhood. And because I now live in Barcelona, I thought it was only right to have the title in Catalan for La Cadira. So my mother brought me a typewriter when I was younger, and I remember writing out a paragraph about this chair that could take you to an astral realm. Fast forward 20, 30 years later, and I had the time over the summer to type up my notes and ideas, and I tested myself by writing it in a first person, kind of like epistolary format about, an expat who lives in Barcelona, like you in the introduction, was inspired by a particular chair which takes him into a realm of suffering. But that's all I'll tell you at the moment.
Well, that's very interesting. We also noticed that there's this constant theme of facing the unknown. Do you think this could be linked to how people deal with fear, like psychologically speaking?
Yeah, I think it's fear wrapped with mystery, wrapped with intrigue. And I think it's part of the human psyche that it keeps us alive in a respect of the idea of thanatos. You know fear, you can feel fear, and it makes you so appreciative of living. And it's that idea where I think as humans, we love to be scared. And if you consider sometimes when you put on films, a horror film, and it's that kind of invitation to the supernatural, invitation to the gore, it's entertaining, but at the same time, there's part of you and part of your innate person that actually likes you.
Okay. There are moments in the book where the character does not know whether it's real or not. Were you trying to explore how stress or panic messes with your mind?
Yeah. Not intentionally, but as I started to write through the book, and if you read it and you've got to the end of the book and the revelation at the end, it can be read as a supernatural or a psychological thriller where he kind of delves into his own trauma from the past. And the trauma has manifested itself in this idea of a chair that wants him to sit in it to take him back to his past and to the trauma that he associated with his family. So yeah, it wasn't intentionally about a psychological trauma. The intention was always to write a supernatural, dark fairy tale. But when you get to the end, you understand my point.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So you also said the character was teleported into a sus abyss. Is that how you pronounce?
Right, it's called Sus Abyss.
Sus abyss, sorry. So when they enter that there, they start to lose themselves slowly. What were you trying to show there? Was it like inspired by real psychological experiences, like feeling disconnected from reality?
Yeah, I think it's probably a blend of everything that you're talking about. In all of my dark fairy tales, what I've tried to do is leave an imprint of me, and I've done that through using Turkish language. So in Turkish, sus means silence, or hush, like shh. And obviously, an abyss can be read metaphorically as in the abyss of your mind, but also a chasm. So sitting in that chair, he delves, he goes, he's transported to the sus abyss, where there is absolute silence. Silence, and there is a guardian of that realm that offers a trade, etc., as your typical fairy tale. Um, but it's the idea of the silence and pain, and sometimes you don't need words to kind of reflect how you feel. You can see it through body language.
Yeah, it feels like it's a place that's made of people's biggest fears. So, did you base this idea on how our subconscious mind works, perhaps?
Perhaps. I think it depends on your definition of subconscious mind and whether you're looking at the id and the beast within. I think the place that I tried to create was not necessarily a place of everyone's fear. There's nothing really scary about sitting in a room or a chasm of silence. It's the fear of the unknown. You've sat in a chair and then somehow you've been transported somewhere else to an astral realm, if you believe in astral projection, to a dreamlike state where you have a phantom speaking to you and offering you something through your mind.
Okay. So we were also curious. You mentioned earlier that this book is a psychological thriller. What makes it a psychological thriller?
The deterioration of the protagonist. And as I said, you can read it as supernatural, just as an entertaining little piece of a fairy tale that goes wrong. And this is where it gets a little bit personal, because I tested myself to try and write it in first person and be that person. That is where I can see for myself, as you read through it, the character, Clive, that is your name, has this breakdown as you go through the book itself. So, as I said, it is trauma, and it's dealing with things that have happened in the past, being confronting your darkest sins and your darkest memories, that your past never leaves you, you're haunted by your actions. And yeah, somehow through the story, I don't want to give the ending this, he kind of resolves it all at the end.
Okay, no spoilers.
No spoil.
And lastly, we know that at the very beginning we asked you why was the story based on a chair. What do you think inspired you to write dark fairy tale books? Because we know that we've noticed that your past collections, they all fall under this genre of like dark fairy tales.
Yeah, I kind of knew you were going to ask me this about inspiration, and I do not have an answer. I think I'm not necessarily inspired. In my head, they've all been written before, which comes back to my childhood. And for me, that was the most imaginative part of my life. So you've got to go back. You're talking before the internet, even before the analog age. You know, my mother bought me that typewriter one particular Christmas because I was interested in writing stories and exercise books. So everything I write now, these are childhood ideas that have been translated through time. And the fact that I'm an English teacher and I can, really refine and polish my prose is lovely. But the inspiration was, I think, as a child, definitely. I think boredom, honestly. My inspiration was boredom. Not much to do in the early 80s. Not really allowed to play out in the area that I came from. So it was kind of, what do we do? It was homework, television. Back then we had 3 channels, not like the thousands you have now. So I wrote stories.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, guys, if you're looking for a book that will make you lose your mind, I think you just found the best one. So, please don't forget to check out this mind blowing story. We'll leave the link to La Caída in the description box.
Anyways, thank you so much for coming here and talking to us about your book. We hope you guys have a fun listening this episode, and please look forward to our following episode.
Thanks, both.
Okay, that's it for today. This was Lorgia and Nicole on Thinking Out Loud. See you next week.